All right, anybody remember what Micah 6:8? There's three things in Micah 6:8 that it talks about. Remember what they are? The first one was to do. Oh, Emily, I'm sorry, just say it out loud. Okay, so what was the big picture? What do we talk about? To do, there's a J word, to do justice. And so last week we talked about this idea that we are supposed to be a people who are all about doing justice, about doing the right thing. So I'm going to read Micah 6:8 for us, and then we're going to jump into our second of those. But Micah 6:8 says this: He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And so remember, we talked about this idea that sometimes we're in a situation with our parents that they're like, hey, what should you be doing? And you're like, I don't know. Why don't you tell me what I should be doing? Because the answer that you're coming up with isn't good enough. And so what we're doing is we're coming back to some basic foundational ideas about how we're supposed to live as believers. And we're doing it in these three ways: to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. So last week was all about doing justice, about standing up for the person who can't stand up for themselves, about doing what's right, not just what maybe we want to do, and finally getting to a point where we see the things around us that are wrong, the injustices in our world, and we vocalize that. We stand up, and we're not just talking about it, that we're actually being about doing justice. So tonight we're going to talk about loving kindness. So if you're in the room, I want you to grab a gray Bible. There should be one in the seat underneath you or in front of you. Grab a gray Bible. We're going to look at a couple different things. But here's what I want us to start off with. How many of y'all have seen like hey, let's normalize certain things? You've seen that on social media? One of the things that I saw this week that I was just like, man, that is so true. Because it was just a post that said, let's normalize not needing to know what people are going through in order to be kind and compassionate. Right? Let's normalize not needing to know what someone's walking through in order to be kind and compassionate to them. And this is so true. This week we were shown such a good example of this. But this is so true when it comes to this week on Friday. Chadwick Boseman passed away. Anybody know who Chadwick Boseman is? If you don't know, he is most famous for playing Black Panther in the Marvel series. He also played Jackie Robinson in 42. He also played Little Richard. He played some really iconic black characters. And a lot of people have been posting this week about how Chadwick Boseman gave young black kids a superhero to look up to. Because in a lot of different ways, all the superheroes that get portrayed in the movies are usually white. And Chadwick Boseman was able to give people of color something to look up to say, hey, that's my superhero. That superhero looks like me. But if you read any of the stories about Chadwick Boseman this week, Chadwick Boseman died of cancer and was diagnosed in 2016. So 4 years ago, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he died in August of 2020. After making Black Panther, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War, there was like 2 other movies that he made while undergoing cancer treatment. And here's some of the things that people said about him on some of the tabloids, social media, things like that. They said, what's wrong with Chadwick Boseman? He may be working out too much. He is losing too much weight. He doesn't look healthy. They were making fun of him for the weight that he was losing, thinking that he might have like anorexia, that he might have some body image issues. And the whole time he was undergoing cancer treatment and was essentially dying before our eyes. But none of us knew it. Nobody knew. When he died, it was the first time that any of us learned that Chadwick Boseman had cancer. And so we've got to get to a point where we're not looking at people and saying, does this person deserve my kindness and my compassion? Does this person deserve kind words? No, we've got to get to a point where we don't have to know what someone's going through in order to be kind, in order to speak kind words. So here's the deal. There's nothing wrong with the desire to be liked. Nothing. We all want to be liked in some way. We all want to be known. We all want to be loved. But when our desire to be popular, liked, loved, known for something causes us to make bad choices, it's not worth it. It's not worth the harm and the difficult situations and relationships that we can cause by our not kind words. It's not worth it. We've got to be a people that continue to see the way that God sees somebody and treat them accordingly. So in order to kind of help understand this, we're going to look at two passages. The first is in Luke chapter 10. Luke chapter 10. 29. On page 742. Page 742. Luke chapter 10. Now, this is a very familiar parable that you may have heard before. We've probably talked about it before down here, but I want to read this, and maybe it's going to look a little different when we start thinking about how we are loving kindness. We're speaking kind words. We're treating people with kindness. This is the parable of the Good Samaritan, Luke chapter 10, starting verse 29. Actually, let's back up. 25. And behold, a lawyer stood up and put him to the test. He's talking to Jesus, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to them, What is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and all your mind. Love God, right? We have that on our wall, we have it on our shirts. And love your neighbor as yourself. Love people, okay? So those are things that we focus on a regular basis. Love God, love people. That's what Jesus says to him. Verse 28, And he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. Verse 29, But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, Who is my neighbor? So this is kind of that, who am I supposed to be kind to? Do I just be kind to the people who are kind to me, who say nice words to me? Or am I kind to everyone? This is what Jesus says. But he, verse 30, he replied, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Verse 31. Now by chance, a priest, you might even say a person who goes to church, a godly person, a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. He walked to the other side of the road, said, Nope, I don't want any part of that. So likewise, a Levite, who again was a good, God-fearing person, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, and again, this is that person who Jews and Samaritans don't get along. They don't like each other. This is like friendship and Cooper. Like, this is like, no, I ain't got no part of that, right? A Samaritan comes by, and it says, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had what? Compassion. He was kind. He had compassion on this person. He went to him, bound up his wounds, pouring oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal, brought him to the inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, so gave some money, gave it to the innkeeper, saying, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. So he says, hey, whatever you need to take care of him, to make him healthy, and to give him everything he needs, whatever it takes, I'll pay you whenever I get back. Verse 36, which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? He said, the one who showed him what? No, showed him what? Mercy. The one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. So this is real common. We talk about this verse a lot in Christianity. We say things like being a good Samaritan. We have programs in our country that talk about being a good Samaritan. But here's the deal. This is all about showing kindness to people who look different, who have a different culture, who maybe believe different things than you. This is about showing that person kindness. Now I want to go to another one in Matthew chapter 8. And remember, we're all about love, showing kindness. We're all about being about kindness. So Matthew chapter 8, verse 1, we're going to read another passage. Matthew chapter 8, verse 1. On page 692, Matthew chapter 8, starting in verse 1, on page 692. This Bible story is brought to you by NOS. Dude, if they could pay me to preach, it'd be awesome. All right, Matthew chapter 8, starting in verse 1, on page 692. It says this. When he came down from the mountain, great crowds followed him. So who came down from the mountain? Jesus. And people start following him. And behold, a leper came to him and knelt before him. Now, if you are not familiar, a leper is a person who has a skin disease. Now, in the ancient world, if you had a skin disease, there are multiple things that the Bible calls leprosy, but you were considered unclean. It was very oftentimes contagious, and if you were to touch somebody who had leprosy, then you could get leprosy, you could get sick, then you would also be considered unclean. And so a leper was probably one of the most outcast people in the culture. Like if you're thinking of the person who no one likes, they don't smell good, they don't look good, they don't act right, nobody likes this person. Okay, so I want you to get in mind who this is. In fact, you might be able to picture in your own school, maybe not a person who has leprosy, but a person that nobody likes. A person that, like, if they walk into the class, you're like, oh, please don't sit next to me, right? Or maybe you're at lunch and you're just like, okay, as long as they don't sit at my table, like, we'll be okay, right? Like that's the kind of emotion that I want you to think about when thinking about a leper of the ancient world. Now look what happens. This leper comes to Jesus. He knelt before him, saying, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. And Jesus stretched out his hand and what? Touched him. Now remember, in the ancient world, you don't touch somebody with leprosy. Like that's like the worst thing ever. Like you don't touch somebody who has leprosy because you could get leprosy, you could be unclean, and then you can't get a job, you can't have a family, you can't do anything. Jesus knows this. This is important. Jesus knows that this person is the most ostracized, outcast person in all of their culture. And it says that Jesus reached out and touched him, knowing what everyone in that circle would have been thinking watching this. Remember, who's following him? Great crowds. All these people are following him. They're watching him reach out and touch this leper going, Jesus, what are you doing? You know you can't do that. He reaches out and touched him, saying, I will, as in I will heal you, I will make you clean. Then he says, be clean. And immediately his leprosy was cleansed. And Jesus said to him, see that you say nothing to anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the gift that Moses commanded for a proof to them. So he says, hey, don't go tell anybody. Go show them. He doesn't say, hey, go wave at everybody, because here's the deal. The leper, for his entire life, as long as he's had leprosy, has had to walk down the side of the road, and if people were coming, would have to yell, unclean, unclean, stay away from me. And Jesus in that moment doesn't say, hey, go tell them. He says, go up to them and say, hey, let me show you. Like, let me show you my skin and show you that I'm clean. And all of that happened because Jesus was first kind. He took compassion. He took pity on the leper, and he showed him mercy. And he was able to show him kindness. On Instagram yesterday, we posted a quote by Mother Teresa. And it says this: if you judge people, you have no time to love them. And that stuck out to me. That's why I put it on Instagram, because it jumped out at me, because so many times I may be sitting there going, man, I want to go and show people love, but I don't know who I'm supposed to show love to, right? And then all of a sudden I get this conviction, because all of a sudden God starts putting people in my mind. God starts putting people in my heart that I'm like, I don't really like that person. Like I don't really want to have to go have a conversation with that person. Oftentimes for me, it's people who are either homeless, maybe walking down the street because they don't have a vehicle. We have that happen a lot here in Indiana. People will be walking maybe to a house, to a job, things like that. And I have a perfect opportunity to show them love by saying, hey, can I offer you a ride? Now, I'm not saying that you should pick up strangers and give them rides, but I'm saying for me, that's usually where the Lord convicts me. And then I talk myself out of it, because I go, yeah, but I don't know who that person is. They might smell bad. They might be an axe murderer. I don't really want to die today, right? Like I justify it in so many different ways to not show this person love. But the whole point of what Jesus did by saying, I'm going to show love to this person who no one else likes, is he's saying you've got to look at that person differently. And that's what Mother Teresa said, right? Mother Teresa said, if you're so busy judging somebody, if it's so busy for me to be like, man, Ethan is wearing that ugly hat. Why would he wear that? Like, who wears Columbia hat? Like, if I'm sitting here in this moment of judging him, I can't love him well. You see what I mean? So how many times do we miss an opportunity to show someone kindness, but we stop ourselves because we immediately put up a wall of, oh my gosh, she's walking in with that mask on? That doesn't even match her outfit, right? And we find a way to judge them and therefore prevent ourselves from being able to love them well. One of our very own on social media, I put this quote in here, Zoe Reeves, she put on her Instagram the other day this quote, and I was like, man, this is perfect. It's what we're talking about. It says, just a reminder that putting others down in an argument doesn't help you win the argument. Be kind, even if you disagree. Here's the deal. I have a really hard time sometimes being kind to people who I think are idiots. Come on, somebody be honest. Raise your hand. How many of you have a hard time being kind to people who you think are idiots, right? Because I'm sitting there having a conversation with you, and I'm sitting there going, you can't honestly believe that, right? And in that moment, I've judged them, and I am no longer being kind to them. No longer. I have lost the ability to be kind to them because I first said, your argument is dumb. And I've lost that ability to show them what Micah 6:8 is saying about loving kindness. I think it's so great that the fruits of the Spirit, I think middle school girls, y'all talked about this in your small group on Sunday, about the fruits of the Spirit. If you want to go look it up, Galatians chapter 5, verse 20-something, 22. We'll go with 22. But the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Kindness is a fruit. It is the demonstration that God is working in your life, and out of what God is doing in your life, kindness comes out. And so when we're trying to figure out, okay, how do I do this? Now what? Okay, I don't really know what my direction for life is. What do I do now? The first thing I want us to be about is I want us to be a people who are all about doing justice, for looking for ways that we can stand up for the person who can't stand up for themselves. How can we be looking to do what's right, not just what makes us happy? But secondly, I want us to be people who love actually being kind to people. Not just, well, I feel guilted into it because Michael told me to be kind to people, so now I'm going to be kind to that person who I didn't want to be kind to. No. I want you to be a person who actually enjoys being kind to people, who actually says, you know what? I get fulfilled by being kind to people, even if they don't deserve it. Even if they're not kind to me in return, even if they're talking behind my back, even if they are saying ugly things about me, I'm still going to look for ways to show that person kindness. And in doing so, we become people who are transformational in our environments. The people that are around us feel loved. They know they're loved. They understand that we're being kind to them, not out of some sense of like Christian moral guilt, but because we actually love being kind to people. And it changes lives. Changes your life and changes the lives of people around you. So your challenge this week is to think through, how can you be kind? How can you be kind? How can you show kindness to your brother or sister? To your mom or dad? How many of you probably, when you got home, if you said something nice to your mom or dad, they'd be shocked? Right? What if we did the thing that's unexpected? Instead of talking back, instead of mouthing off, we said, yes, ma'am. No, sir. Yes, sir. And we begin to be kind to our parents, and all of a sudden they go, hold on a second. Michael might need a raise if he's got my kid to be kind, right? Find ways to be kind to your siblings, to your parents, but especially at school. You guys know your schools are very, very difficult. It is hard to go to middle school or high school and be nice. There's a lot of mean, hurtful things that get said at school about you, about someone you care about. But instead of letting that boil up inside of you and go, oh, you want to talk about me? Let me tell you about you, right? Instead of doing that, what if we repaid evil with kindness? And we actually wanted to. We actually loved being about kindness. Because here's the thing. We don't need to know what someone's going through, who they are, who their family is. We don't know anything about that person to show them kindness. The same kindness that Jesus showed the leper, the same kindness that the Samaritan showed the person who was dead, half dead on the side of the road. We want to be a people who are all about loving kindness. And so, God, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for the opportunity to be in this place and to open up your word and be challenged. But God, more than that, I just hope that you well up inside of us a desire to not only do good and to fight for the injustices that we see, but to also really love being about being kind to people, about showing kindness and love and respect to anyone and everyone that we meet. So God, help us be that person. Help us be that group of people, that we leave this room different than we walked in, because we're beginning to apply the foundations that you are showing us, teaching us. And we apply those to our lives, and now we walk away changed because of who you are. And God, we want to stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. And God, we want to actually enjoy, love being kind. So help us be kind this week. Help us show the love of Jesus to anyone and everyone. God, we love you. We praise you. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.